Hello students, welcome back to the class. Today's topic is failed pin in chess. Well, what is a pin? A pin is a scenario where one of the piece or one of the chessmen is tied down because it is guarding a more valuable chessman behind it. Isn't it? Okay, we shall be going through some examples, but a pin is, in short, it's a tied down piece. Failed pin are scenarios where we are under the illusion that the piece is tied down, but in reality, the piece is not tied down. So let's go through some examples to know exactly what a failed pin means and how can we use this knowledge or this trick to win many games in chess. So let's go through the first example of, yeah, this game. We have taken all these examples from practical games. The first example, the first game was played by a player who was very famous in the past. His name is Henry Nelson Pillsbury. So Pillsbury was playing with white and his opponent is a player by the name of Fernandez. The game was played in Cuba, in Havana, which is the capital of Cuba. Now here white played e4, black played e5, and white developed the other knight first, knight to c3. Black played knight c6 and white played f4. Okay, white is offering black to capture the pawn, but black instead, he played d6. White went knight f3. He brought out the other knight, and here black wasted time by playing a6. In the openings, we are supposed to bring out all our pieces quickly and also control the center. You may argue that even the previous moves by white was a waste of time. Actually, no, because this pawn is attacking the center. So it is not a waste of time. And also, when the rook comes to f1 after castling, the rook would be activated. Okay, it will have an open line. So the move f4 was not a waste of time, but this move a6 is definitely a waste of time. Black should have simply brought out his pieces or developed his pieces. Instead, after a6, white played bishop c4, black played bishop g4, and black says, I am pinning your knight. So this knight is guarding against attack of the queen. If the knight moves, black will capture the queen. That is a pin. White took this pawn and black took this pawn with the knight. Now the knight is attacking the bishop and the knight is also putting pressure upon the pinned piece, which is the knight. Now in this type of scenario, we assume the knight is totally tied down. It can not move because the queen will be lost. And sometimes we commit a mistake of not thinking further. We assume the knight will not be able to move ever. But here comes the trick. The knight did move, allowing black to capture the queen. But after black captures the queen, white has seen further. He went bishop takes f7 check. When the king moved up, white played knight d5 check, and it was a checkmate. The knight can't move anywhere. It's check and checkmate. So this is typical example of coordination of one bishop and two knights to checkmate black. But what exactly happened? Black made a mistake of assuming the pinned piece cannot move, and that is why he lost. Now let's move to the next example. It's a very common example. Many games have gone this way, but I have taken this from a game which was played by two Vietnamese kids, under 15 kids. They were playing a tournament among themselves, and both the players have the same name, Tran. So it was Tran white, Tran black, and the game started d4, c4, knight c3, and black played knight f6. White went to pin the knight. The knight cannot move because it is guarding against the bishop's attack of the queen. Now black played knight d7, and here white assumed that since this knight is pinned, we can actually capture this pawn, and we can even capture this pawn because the knight cannot take back. The knight is pinned. But again there was a mistake. It was a false assumption because black could take the knight, and he did take the knight. After bishop d8, he saw further that black will play bishop b4 check, and the king doesn't have any square to go. The queen is forced to cover the check, so black did capture the queen, and then he captured the bishop, which left black with an extra knight against a pawn. So once again an example of failed pin. We assume that a particular piece is pinned, but in reality it is not pinned. It can move, and it can move with power. That means black gains something by moving this knight. Now the next example, well, this is taken from a game which was played in USA, and the player with white is Charosh, the player with black is Yaffe. The game was played in 1936. So don't worry about remembering the names. Just remember the themes of why one side is winning and what mistake the other side makes so that he lost the game. Our main objective is to use these ideas in our own games. Well, white started with d4, black played c5, white advanced g5, knight a6, white played knight f3, black played d6. So these are normal moves at the start of the game. White played e4, and now comes black's move bishop g5, pinning the knight. Okay, and once again white proves that it was a case of failed pin. That means the pin doesn't work in this particular case. White went knight e5, removing the cover of this diagonal. Now black can simply capture the queen, but what happened? White played bishop b5 check, and then the king cannot be defended, so black also has to give up the queen. Now what actually happened in the game is not this. Black realized this, and black played queen a5 check first. So this is a case of in-between move or intermediate move. Before capturing the queen, he made way for the king to escape. Now bishop b5 check will not be deadly because the king can escape. But then white intercepted the check with counter attack on the queen. Black captured the knight first, white took the queen, black also took the queen. And now, before white captured king d1, he had a better move, that is bishop b5 check and checkmate. So this was once again an example of failed pin where black forgot about the move knight e5. Okay, so let's move on, and I would suggest you guess all the moves for one side so that you have a practice of playing this type of tactics or tricks. Now this game which we are going to see was played by Mises, a famous player from England in the past century, and white was Mises against a German player whose name is Uquist, and this game was played in Germany in 1895. White started with e4, black played d5. After e d5, queen d5, white played knight c3. The queen went back, the queen was attacked. White played d4, black developed his knight, white also developed his knight. Black pinned white's knight, and white moved his pawn further up, attacking the black knight. Now, assuming it was an assumption, the knight on f3 is pinned. So black played his knight to e5, putting pressure upon the pinned knight. But what happened is White suddenly played knight e5, allowing black to take his queen, and then he played bishop b5 check. So it is very similar to the previous examples where we have a knight and bishop coordinating against the king. And in this case, apart from giving up his queen, black also has c6. But after d takes c6, it's very difficult for black to parry or counter white's idea of either playing c7 discovered check or playing c takes b7 with the same discovered check. So the position is so bad that black doesn't have any defense, and he decided to resign. He gave up the game at this point. And finally, the last game, the last example. Here, this game was played in London. The player with white pieces, his name is Buckle, and he played this game against an amateur player whose name is not known to us. Well, white started with e4, black played c5, white played knight f3, d6, knight c3. White is developing his pieces, and black played e5. Here white developed his bishop further, bishop c4, and only now black starts developing his pieces. Knight c6, white played d3, black developed his knight from e7. In a fairly position which looks almost like equal, suddenly white played bishop g5, pinning the knight. Well, there were better moves here, but anyway, white decides to pin the knight can't move, and black decides to counter pin white's knight. This knight also cannot move. And what white did? He put pressure upon the pinned piece. Now he's attacking the pinned piece with two forces. Black has sufficient defense. He has three forces at this moment. But black also decided to copy white's idea, and he went for knight d4, putting pressure upon this knight which is pinned. Now also white has sufficient defense at this point. There is no need to panic. But suddenly black forgot the knight on f3 was actually not pinned, because it moved to e5, sacrificing the queen. White saw that if he can put his bishop on f7, the king would be checkmated. Now after knight e5, when black took on d1, white's first task was to move this knight and then play bishop f7 checkmate. So what he did is he put his knight on f6, checking the king. When black took with the pawn, white captured the f7 pawn with his bishop, and it's checkmate. A very nice example of checkmating with the knight and bishop working together. So today's class was about pin. Usually pins are good ideas. We tie down opponent's pieces, but while tying them down, we should not assume the opponent's pieces can never move. Sometimes they can move, and move with lot of energy. So we have to be very cautious while pinning our opponent's pieces. Meet you in the next class. Goodbye.